In this video, we're going to talk about how people can become good business partners. It's a common job title and an important concept. That's coming up right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to HR Shop Talk, where you'll get some expert insight into HR. I'm your host, Andrea Adams. I encourage you to subscribe to our show by clicking on the button at the bottom of the screen to continue learning from those who have in-depth HR experience. Today, my guest is Todd Bassett, who's a senior HR leader with diverse experience across a variety of industries, including public and private, big and small, union and non-union. He has a saying, it's business first, and then you sprinkle in HR. Hi, Todd. How are you?
Good. Yourself?
Good. I'm good. So Todd, you suggested this topic, and I thought it was a good idea, having been a business partner for a long time. So would you share why partnership in HR is important and something you're passionate about?
Well, I think for me, the business partner model, as it sounds, requires a true partnership. So we have to have the business in the forefront of how we can best help them or, solve different problems. And so that word partner is really important to me. That's how I view, the role, certainly as a generalist goes, of where we've got to be. That partnership also is a coach. That partner is also somebody who can be somewhat intuitive of what they're hearing, but they really have to understand the business well.
In what ways do you think HR needs to work at understanding the business?
I think there's a number of different ways. There's certainly the documents that people read, but I think that's just a fraction of really what it is. I think our listening skills are really important. So for example, if I have a meeting with a business leader for 30 minutes, 20 minutes of that is listening to them, asking business questions specifically about what's keeping them up at night, operational questions, all of those things, until the last 10 where I might offer some things that HR can maybe help or support them given on whatever their challenges might be. And so really asking thoughtful and curiosity type questions to make sure that you understand the business in a very intimate and direct way. The other thing that, I tend to do a lot of is go out and shadow jobs. Get out there in the field, see what they do, why people are attracted to certain work, and see if you can see anything glaring out there. I've learned a lot from shadowing the front lines just to get a sliver of what their day might look like. As a business partner as well, in general, you're part of the management team. So again, how you contribute is really important. So making sure that you understand every department, how it works. And I take a systems thinking approach. So how is everything interconnected? How do things work? What is their main drivers? And make sure that you understand the business drivers just as much as you need to understand the HR drivers.
Okay. So to provide some context, the business partner model is prominent right now. That's pretty clear if you ever look at a job posting. What other models preceded it?
Well, historically, it's more of a policing model. HR was a very separate department. It was very governance driven, very administrative driven.
Right.
It didn't have really any interaction with business other than sort of telling what they had to do, what forms they had to fill out, when they did it. And it really had no business driver element to it, except for this is what we have to do. Yes, some of it was legislative driven, the law, but a lot of it was just that HR practitioners were not trained or expected to think of the business outcomes of all of those activities. So the end user, for example, we never really focused on that in HR. It was just, this is what we do. This is what we ask of everybody to do, regardless if they're busy, regardless if for some reason this doesn't make any sense. And so it was very much of to find out people are not doing it and then basically police them and go from there. And that's what historically HR was until it really evolved into the HR business partner model.
All right. So what are some qualities of a good HR business partner?
Well, I think a couple things. I think one is it is a relationship. So I think people that are good relationship builders, people that communicate well, and again, listening is a really big piece of that. I think people who have an intuitive nature about them to understand their audience, to take the cues from them, that also have a sort of a broad level of acumen. So like we talked about earlier, sort of the business side of things, the financial side, to be able to toggle back and forth between talking business, like pure business, and then sprinkling in HR. The other piece is knowing when to champion something, knowing when to challenge something. So being confident enough to say, you know what, that's not that's not the right way to do it. Here's what we should be considering. Because you're right, we do have a responsibility for the sort of that governance piece, but we can do it in a way that helps them self-discover the right thing to do. So somebody who has some influencing skills makes a good business partner. Obviously, conflict management, is one of those ones because, again, helping people through some of their roadblocks and knows, again, how to listen well and then how to execute.
So if you find value in this video, hit the like button. And my question for you today is, what's made it hard for you to be a business partner? What have you done about it? Tell us in the comment section below. Can I give you an example of a situation I was partied to quite a while ago, but it was tough. There was a mid-level manager who was quite popular, and there was a sexual harassment complaint against him, and there was grounds for the complaint, and that was tough to see through. How do you balance the policing and the partnering?
Well, again, I think policing might be a little bit of a strong narrative. To what you're talking about is there is a point where things like what you just described, and I've gone through a lot of those myself, and unfortunately some of the outcomes of those investigations mean that people who you had a level of respect for, people who, again, like you said, were popular, you have to kind of draw the line. Even if you have this at different levels, some senior people will say, well, geez, but they do such a good job, I wouldn't want to terminate or have some disciplinary action against them. Our jobs is really then, okay, to say, broaden the picture out a little bit. Everybody is replaceable. Yes, there's a bit of inconvenience here, but what's the right thing that we want to stand for? What are our values of the company that said we would allow this type of behavior to go unchecked? Like I've seen it happen where, again, our best advice sometimes is ignored. And guess what? It happened again. Then you put the company at great financial risk, reputational risk. Again, back to our influencing skills. We've got to be able to create the clear case to say why this action should be taken. Remember, though, that we have to be clinicians. We can't be putting our own unconscious bias and prejudice into the mix. It actually has to be evidence-based, a fair investigation. What we're trying to say is the outcome is based on that and not just our own opinion. And I think sometimes for HR practitioners, that can be very challenging because we've all had personal experiences that shadow our clear thought. But I think when you have offenses like what you're talking about, which are severe, as much as it affects you, I think if you have a solid process, you've done it fair, that even if the outcome is maybe you're going to impact someone's life, like losing a job, for example, at least you can say, I'm comfortable because we did the right thing in the right way. Okay, so what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out on preparing themselves to be a better partner? I think the 70-20-10 approach to development, 70% experiential, 20% just through others, mentoring, and 10% through formal education. There's not a lot of educational events to talk about HR business partners, except for some internal things that are created. But I would say is to seek out some mentorship for those that really do it exceptionally well, to give some, some tips, and especially as you go through it. You and I both know that on a day-to-day basis, we have good days and bad days. Sometimes the relationship, goes well, and then other days it becomes very hard and frustrating. But I do think, to perfect our skills in listening, taking a breath and making sure that whatever we do, we take a lot of interest in the business. And we've got to practice at communicating in business terms. And when we present an idea, it should be sort of like a business case. All the elements should be there just as much on the HR side as it is on the business initiatives that we see and how they get approved. As the relationship goes, just like you might imagine, have some good practices, meaning how you stay connected with those that you are meant to support and what things you bring forward to them, and adding value of what's your value proposition. What I will say, though, is that we're all individuals and we all approach a relationship a different way. We have different personalities. So don't be afraid to be yourself either. I wouldn't want us all to be the same, but there's certain foundational pieces that I think we all have to bring. We just have to bring it in our own way that's natural. If you're not connected to the person that you're serving, it's really hard to get things done.
So we need to work at being better business partners. You might be interested in an episode on performance management. An episode on that is coming, and I'll add a link when it's available. Thanks, and see you next time.